Well, with the international break in the books, time for Austin FC to face off for the first time against an international foe in CF Montreal. We're joined by the radio voice in English of Montreal, that being Jon Still. Jon, a little chuckle there. You are a Quebec native, a Montreal native, I assume bilingual. Is that a correct assumption?
Absolument, oui, pas de problème. Yes, very, very bilingual, born and raised. But thanks for having me, Lincoln. Yes, I can do both of them, but my native tongue is English. Yes.
Excellent. Of course, Montreal has a French language voice as well. Obviously, this is a fun one to look forward to. Both these teams, 28 goals on the year. Both of them are not just above the playoff line, but both of them, if the playoffs started today, we'd ask, why are the playoffs starting today? But we would also see both these teams hosting playoff matches. But first, I'm an Austin native, fortunate to get to call Austin FC matches. You're a Montreal and Quebec native, getting to call your, I would say, hometown team. Obviously, you've seen them grow throughout the years. What was your earliest experience just getting acclimated to soccer in Montreal?
Well, the earliest experience was actually back when they weren't even in MLS. They were still the Montreal Impact, which caused well, before they were even in MLS, they used to be the Montreal MIC years and years and years ago. But yes, they became the Montreal Impact, and they were playing in the league just underneath the MLS. And so everyone in town kind of just started to finally learn to grow. I mean, there's obviously a very big immigrant population here. So my dad is actually from Scotland. So I had actually grown up a big Celtic fan, actually, instead of CF Montreal. And then as I started to get a little bit older and getting into high school and knowing that there was actually a team in town that was playing, and knowing that Zlatan Ibrahimovic or Steven Gerrard or David Beckham could come to town, David Villa. I mean, I just remember being a kid and then going to university and having all my buddies being able to buy season tickets and being able to watch some of those players play. It was absolutely fantastic. And now to see it all come kind of 360 degrees to where I am now, it's fantastic to be not only just a football or soccer fan, but to now be able to call it is just terrific in my hometown.
Yeah, Montreal's been in both varieties of the NASL, the USL. It was a short-lived existence in the newer NASL as you all joined Major League Soccer 1 year later after the second NASL came along. But quickly, Montreal, what a great hotbed for sports. I don't know if you're aware of this, but ice hockey is pretty big up there. And I assume when you go to the stadium, a lot of great things to be distracted by in the area. I know the Olympics predated you in Montreal by a little bit, but what's that like, just showing up to work to call a match and being surrounded by that atmosphere?
It's great. To be perfectly honest, last year and the last 2 years have been kind of really a struggle for CF Montreal because there was a rebranding as you know, it used to be called the Montreal Impact. And that really kind of, as well as the way that they changed the crest and the logo, it felt like for a long time under the previous president, they had lost a little bit of goodwill with fans in their own city. I remember when Didier Drogba signed with the team, and there was basically people who had rushed the airport, and there were lines outside the airport. You couldn't even really see Didier Drogba through the sea of people. And then to see it kind of fall apart the way that it did over the last 2 years, it really feels like this year is the year where, under new administration with Olivier Renard as the sporting director and Gabriel Gervais now as their new president and CEO, you're really kind of getting that same feeling that you were just describing around Saputo Stadium. So just right next to Olympic Stadium, which is popular and unpopular in and around these parts due to the fact that it's still government funded and government kind of maintained. But yes, it is a beautiful, beautiful park. Not nearly as I'm hearing it with you guys out in Austin, and the vibe that you guys have around your stadium, which is already seemingly top 5 in MLS, which is just fantastic for you guys. Saputo Stadium is getting back to what it once was, and fans are finally starting to fill it yet again. And it really feels like the way that CF Montreal started the season has got people talking yet again that this could be a soccer hotbed in Montreal.
It's Austin traveling to Montreal. That match is on the 18th. 1 day later will mark the 1 year anniversary of the opening of Q2 Stadium for Major League Soccer when Austin hosted San Jose last year. But I know you all don't feel sorry for Austin having to have played on the road for all that time, because it wasn't for another month in July that you all actually returned from Fort Lauderdale. What was that experience like? I know at the time you weren't the play-by-play voice, but it's still part of your beat. But for fans following the team that called Fort Lauderdale home for the first few months due to the pandemic.
I mean, yeah, that was a gut punch for basically anyone who wanted to support the team. The diehards, they did what they could to basically do as much as humanly possible to support their club, support the black and blue. But yeah, that was a real tough, situation for everyone who was in MLS. And I remember hearing players coming out and saying how it almost felt strange. Well, not almost, it felt extremely strange to be playing away from home. And then I think the thing is CF Montreal, because of the weather here, every single year they basically start with a 7-8 game road trip where they have to kind of handle really the rigors of MLS right off the bat. And then you add in the fact that this year they were able to have CONCACAF Champions League soccer. That added an extra little wrinkle into what was going on. So it feels like this team early on, they know that Wilfred Nancy, their manager, has explained to the players just kind of the wars that you have to go through very early on in a season in MLS as a CF Montreal player. So they spend a large portion of their time to start out the season in Florida, but to spend as long as they did there in a bubble setting. I mean, you heard it for guys who were in the NBA, guys who were in the NHL, just any kind of bubble setting was very, very difficult for the players. And finally being able to get around in Montreal and really kind of get to embrace it, especially a guy like Georgi Mihailovic, whose French is actually coming along very well. The next time that he's with the men's national team, maybe someone's got to ask him a question en français. But it feels like players are really kind of embracing the city for the first time since the pandemic.
Of course, with that said, Fort Lauderdale, I do think is closer to you all than actually Vancouver is, as much as we associate the Whitecaps as being a rivalry. I think that's about a 45-hour drive if you cut through the United States. I'm not sure exactly what Fort Lauderdale is from you all, but quite.
I think it's a little less. I think it's maybe about 28 hours drive. Yeah.
Far more reasonable if you don't mind running into some alligators during training, which I think we saw from you all as well as Toronto. Before we dive into the team, any fun facts about your hometown that we should know going into this weekend?
Well, fun facts about CF Montreal and Montreal in general. It's basically Montreal Canadiens town, live or die, even though I know that the state of Texas has had more Stanley Cups since Montreal have, which I'm sure sticks in the craw of several Montreal fans. The Canadiens are basically a religion over here. Hockey is a religion, but it really feels like now you're starting to get a foothold in terms of soccer, especially with the immigrant populations here who are really starting to kind of get a grasp of, yes, we love AC Milan and we love PSG and we love all these teams across Europe, but hey, there's a team here in Montreal. Fun facts about Montreal. You're never going to have a bad meal if you ever come to Montreal. It's absolutely stunning in the summertime. All kinds of festivals. I mean, trust me, Austin, you guys know all about festivals, but we have the Premier Comedy Festival, Just for Laughs here in Montreal, International Jazz Fest as well. The Canadian Grand Prix, the Formula One is this weekend. So if you're ever in Montreal in the summertime, you're never going to have a bad night. All kinds of crazy nightlife. It just might be a little bit tricky if you don't know a little bit of French, but everyone here is as accommodating and as nice as you could possibly imagine. So you'll never not have a good night out in Montreal, especially because the bars are open till 3 a.m. So it'll be a good time.
We typically have a good traveling contingency. We hope we'll be able to hear them over the crowd mic, certainly on the call that we send back to Austin. But for those who do have their passports ready to go and will be there on Saturday, is there somewhere near the stadium they should try to duck their head into?
Ooh, well, Montreal smoked meat is a religion. Schwartz's is maybe about 20 minutes away from the stadium, which is just the go-to place to get some smoked meat. Poutine, you can get poutine absolutely anywhere. Cheese curds, fries, and gravy. It is the staple here in Montreal. But again, because there's so many people from all over anywhere here, you can find basically a good meal anywhere you want to. There's Parc La Fontaine, which is just right across the street from the stadium. So if you want to grab a bottle of wine and hang out in the park for a little bit or go for a little bike ride, that's absolutely beautiful as well. So I would recommend staying around the stadium if you want to stay outside. But Crescent Street, Saint Laurent Street, Saint Denis Street, those are the places to go if you want to have a good time. And there are all kinds of Irish pubs, Hurley's Irish Pub on Crescent Street. There's all kinds of beautiful places that you can go to. If you want to go clubbing and you want to go a little bit crazy, go to Saint Laurent Street. But I would highly recommend Schwartz's, which is also on Saint Laurent. That's the smoke meat institution here in Montreal.
We will put those on Josh Wolf's list so that if he happens to be missing any of his young players, those will be the first places to look. All right. Well, obviously, CF Montreal is enjoying home cooking. No Florida opening month, 2 months, 3 months to begin the season into July. Sitting third in the East right now, seventh in the Supporter Shield, one spot back of Austin. We mentioned goal scoring has not been an issue. Georgi Mihailovic is a big part of that. He went down in your last match against Cincinnati in the first few minutes. What we read back then was hopefully it'd be a short turnaround. We know that affected his time with the United States. Is there optimism he'll be back this weekend?
Yeah, there is optimism. Just first of all, heartbreaking moment for him because he'd done everything humanly possible. I mean, assist leader last year for the team and then goes and basically turns it around this year and becomes a goal scoring threat as well. So doing everything that Greg Berhalter probably could have asked for. And he was very, very emotional. As soon as he rolled his ankle, he knew right away that it was unlikely he was going to be joining the men's national team after all that hard work. But yes, he's been seen in training. So it does seem like it's a good bet that either off the bench or starting for CF Montreal on Saturday, Georgi Mihailovic will be good to go. And without him, he's such an integral part to this team. He's basically, you'd imagine his future is going to be in Europe at some point. He just has that profile. He just has that ability, that little extra touch of class that everyone wants to see on the pitch. And so I expect that he'll play some kind of part, and him and his you could say strike partner Joaquin Torres, which is interesting because they're both kind of playing as a modified wingers in Wilfred Nancy's 3-5-2 formation, or 3-4-2-1, excuse me. It really feels like without those two players, CF Montreal have some problems going forward, but good for CF Montreal fans. Maybe not as good for Austin FC fans that they imagine that Georgi Mihailovic will be ready to go on Saturday.
You took the international break pretty literally. You told me earlier you went down to Morocco. In fact, you were in Morocco while the Morocco national team was actually in the United States playing the red, white, and blue.
Yeah, that's right. I'm very dedicated to my job there, Lincoln. Of course. No, I was. It just seemed to match up. I had a friend of mine who decided to have a destination wedding in Morocco, and just walking through the streets of Morocco, of Marrakesh, the morning after losing to the Americans, the Moroccans were none too happy with the national team, asking one of the guys who was in charge of the riad that I was staying at what exactly happened. And he said, there's just a midfield problem. There's a real midfield problem for them. And he just decided to go into about a 10-15 minute diatribe on exactly why the Moroccan team aren't going to be able to do much at the World Cup. But yes, Morocco, the Moroccan fans were not too pleased, but I'm sure the American fans were enjoying the fact that yet again, they were able to see an absolutely world-class touch from Christian Pulisic to set up that goal that basically turned the entire match on its head.
Yeah, shortly after we saw them here in the United States at Q2 Stadium. So we've had some soccer here as of late, but we're excited to get MLS scheduled back underway. Again, Austin travels this weekend, Saturday, to take on Montreal. First ever meeting between the two teams, both of them well above the playoff line. It'll be another great test for these two squads. Of course, Austin coming off a month of May where all 5 teams were above the playoff line. So we know all about Mihailovic. I'll admit, I play MLS Fantasy, and Georgie's been on my roster more often than not, it seems like, in the midfield, and he has been producing. Now, I'm leaving him off the roster this week. We'll see if he makes me pay for it, but I just feel like I can't have the split allegiance there. But Romell Kyoto, with 5 goals of his own, has been capable in his own right. Now, be honest, on your calls, do you call him Kyoto or do you call him El Romantico?
I only did it last week. I only did it the last game before the international break that I lay into the El Romantico. But yeah, Romell Kyoto, what a fiery figure. I mean, formerly with Houston, of course, as I'm sure your fans know. But he's been so important for CF Montreal, considering that without Mason Toye to start the year, there's really been kind of a missing piece up front in terms of the striker position. He's so good coming off the left flank as well, but he's a fantastic hold-up player. He knows how to bring players in around him. And without Ramel Kyoto, I would be very worried to see where CF Montreal are. He always has that combative style. He's able to be a physical presence both in the air and with the ball at his feet. And the more that he's able to continue scoring for CF Montreal as Mason Toye continues to try and get back from an abductor injury, it really is, he's the man who makes things happen up top for CF Montreal. So it's going to be a real physical challenge for the Austin center backs to deal with El Romantico.
Beautifully done. I would argue you're almost trilingual. As in the offseason, what were the priorities for CF Montreal? And in terms of the new additions, how have they fit in?
Really, I felt like the priorities for CF Montreal were the back line. Rudy Camacho was out of contract going into the offseason. He obviously re-upped, which is huge for Olivier Renard and Wilfred Nancy, but then they were able to bring in Canadian international Alistair Johnston from Nashville for $1 million. And he's actually been playing at the right wing back position, which is strange for me because under John Herdman for the Canadians men's national team, he's more likely playing as a 3-man on the right side of a back three. He's seemingly really kind of adjusted to that role. He's done very well. Joel Waterman has been fantastic. He was the most improved player last year, according to manager Wilfred Nancy. So it really felt like they had to solidify a back end that last year just gave up way too many goals. And as of right now, it feels like things are really ticking for CF Montreal at the back. Where the problems are at the moment is it feels like they continue to try and look for the kind of combination that they need in midfield. Sam Piet and Mathieu Chouanière have been good together at times, but Wilfred Nancy seems to chop and change his midfield week after week. Victor Wanyama is in there. There are times where he impresses. There are times where he disappoints. Ishmael Kone is a very impressive Canadian young player coming up, but he did a job to start the season. Afterwards, it really felt like he was a little bit out of his depth. So more so than anything, CF Montreal are trying to build that jigsaw in the middle of the park with the Torres, Mihailovic, and Kyoto up top. And so we're going to have to see if Wilfred Nancy finally gets kind of that potion, that combination right in the middle of the park where he can set those players going forward really up top. They've been scoring goals for fun, but at the same time, it feels like there are times where they are able to be broken through the lines in the middle of the park. And that has been one of the more frustrating things for CF Montreal fans.
Of course, you've had Breza between the pipes as a constant each and every match, every minute this year. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, 28 goals for, I think 26 goals against. And so there is that give and take that obviously we love the goal output from all these teams. We love the fireworks, but sometimes that means trading on the opposite end. A lot of that taking place in the midfield.
Yeah, during their 8-game, they had a club record 8-game unbeaten streak, which was fantastic for the supporters, where they were able to kind of really quell things at the back. But it does feel like they're like what was a real problem at the start of the year, which was giving away the ball at inopportune times, or really allowing a goal scoring chance out of absolutely nothing, has kind of reared its ugly head just before the international break for CF Montreal. It's a reason why they've been having so many high scoring games. So it really feels like at the moment, for whatever reason, they've never been able to address being not a particularly good set piece team at defending set pieces. So they've always kind of been very susceptible to be scored on from set pieces. So there are still things to clean up. The beautiful thing is, as you just said, if you're scoring goals, the fans are happy. The fans have something to cheer about. But at the end of the day, 3 points are 3 points, and that's what Wilfred Nancy and the 11 guys who are out there need. Sebastian Breza was struggling early on. He's really come on over the last couple of weeks. We'll see if he can continue that run of form. But I think CF Montreal fans are really interested to see if Victor Wanyama, Sam Piet, whoever it is who's the defensive destroyer for CF Montreal, is going to be able to take care of things in front of the back line and make sure that they're able to release the attackers going the other way.
Well, Stade Saputo looks great on TV, looks great on the broadcast. It looks to be a fun atmosphere. Obviously, we've been experiencing 100-degree heat all week long here. That's 38 degrees Celsius for everybody tuning in north of the border. In terms of that home environment this year, just what's that been like for you when you show up for a day at the office?
It's been really good. It's been really good. That's part of the reason why I think you have to tip your hat to Gabriel Gervais, the new president and CEO, is that he has brought basically the fun back to Saputo Stadium. People are really starting to kind of get behind this team yet again after 2 years of kind of feeling like the DNA or the soul of their club was kind of slipping away after changing from Montreal Impact to CF Montreal. But there's tailgates before the game as well. There are all kinds of activities for kids, so they're really trying to make it to emphasize that they want to make it as much of a party as possible around Saputo Stadium. The pitch looks absolutely immaculate every single time, so tip of the hat to the grounds crew as well. But yeah, Saputo Stadium is starting to feel like a fortress again for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, they've made it a priority to have that natural surface there. Obviously, if they need inclement weather, playing surface, they can go next door to Olympic Stadium. One common thread between these two clubs, roster-wise, Maxi Urruti, before he was at the other Texas clubs, he was up there north of the border. Any memories from Maxi's time up there with Montreal?
Yeah, you know what? Maxi Urruti, a very loyal servant to CF Montreal. As I'm sure he's been a loyal servant everywhere he's been. But unlike what he's been doing for Austin FC so far this year, it just felt like the goals were the one thing that we're missing. And for a guy who plays up top, that's a pretty important part of the equation. Fantastic presser, so good at bringing his teammates in, understanding exactly where they're going, making runs, drawing defenders out of position. But it just felt like fans were always left a little bit frustrated because he can never add in that closing quality, that quality in the final third that could put teams away. And it really feels like now, good for him. I mean, I'm sure that CF Montreal fans are very happy that Maximiliano Urruti is finally getting the goals that they wish that he had gotten when he was with CF Montreal. They'd like to see it not happen on Saturday, though.
He is a guy that obviously it seems like he really has found a great fit with his teammates in Austin. I mentioned to you talking on your radio show on TSN 690 earlier in the week that even if he never scored a goal, I still think he'd be worth his weight in grilling and the amount of meat that he's been able to serve up to his teammates in training and really bringing the team all around. It makes us jealous that we don't get to spend a little bit more time with them around training sessions just to see if there's any leftovers when it's all said and done. So remind us your game day routine. It'll be a 7:30 Eastern time kick, 6:30 for those in Austin. What time are you pulling up into the stadium? How are you getting in the zone?
Starting right around 4:00, getting into the stadium, getting there real early. We have a pregame show for a half an hour on TSN 690 with my co-host Grant Needham, who's a former striker for the Montreal Impact, CF Montreal. He likes to call himself the original number 9. And Canadian soccer Hall of Famer Amy Walsh, who is our sideline reporter. And we have some good banter just before the show to get everyone nice and loosened up. Watch the players come out, do some warm-ups, and get ready to go. And then finally watch some fans slowly starting to filter into the stadium. Maybe Maxi Urruti can be a part of those tailgates that have been happening outside of Saputo Stadium, get those grill master skills underway. But yes, just being able to be around the players for a little bit, and then they go out, do their basic training right away. And then after that, it's game time after our half-hour pregame show on TSN 690.
As long as Maxi is there in the stadium in time for opening kick, assuming he's back in Josh Wolf's starting 11 where he's been just about every match this year, you're welcome to share in the spoils of that great grilling out there. Jon, appreciate your time. Looking forward to this rare clash between Austin and Montreal. Hopefully it comes back on the schedule sooner rather than later, but congrats on all the success so far that Montreal's enjoyed.
Thank you so much, Lincoln, and continued success to yourself and Austin after this weekend.
Very well put. A reminder, in Austin, you'll be able to tune in. 6:30 is the start of the broadcast. Our TV crew will have the call on the CW Austin this week. Remember, a 30-minute pregame show precedes that on the CW Austin at 6 o'clock. I'll have the live call on Alt 97.5 FM at 6:30. You can also tune in live anywhere from the iHeart Radio app for free. Again, Jon Still, voice of the CF Montreal in English. And again, if you can't find us on the radio, try to dial into him. If you find a French language broadcast, probably not John, but you'll be able to find him on TSN 690. Jon, again, appreciate it. Best of luck this year.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.